Guy was helping cutting a tree down. He got hurt badly, so low skills.
Afterwards, I'll tell you about one of the most amazing mediations I had to actually give up my tie
One air.
to make a deal.
I'd like to welcome everybody tonight to the February 26th Fair Rent Commission meeting. Tonight we have a public hearing. The commission will hear testimony in the case of Alpha Capital LLC versus various tenants. And that case list tonight is going to be... What? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice and justice for all.
Excuse me on that. Okay, the case list tonight, Scott Olnick versus Alpha Niantic LLC, Bessie Montezuras versus Alpha Niantic LLC, Charles LaPlante Jr. versus Alpha Niantic LLC, Peter Roberts versus Alpha Niantic LLC, John Montezuras versus Alpha Niantic LLC. So,
Point of inquiry of counsel present. You were here the last hearing involving similar parties. Are you going to have one or two select tenants give testimony, or is it each case individual?
no, I believe they're going to do, the commission will hear from each tenant and any witnesses for the tenants. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, we had prepared, I'll
Okay.
do an opening statement, and then each of the three tenants that are with us tonight we'll make a statement, and we'll keep it tight. With Peter Roberts, because that case has already been heard, that's more of a deliberation thing, I think. We're just asking for redeliberation because the last deliberation relied on an error in my summary page rather than the proof of income that has the correct numbers.
Yep, I make note of that. During the time, the landlord must hold all comments and questions. A commission member will swear in the tenant or tenant representative and witnesses for the tenant. The tenant and witnesses state their cases and provide any supporting documents. The commission may ask questions that will provide information to be used in making their decision. The commission will then ask the landlord or landlord representative if they have any questions regarding what was presented. Questions must be addressed to the commission, not directly to a tenant or counsel. So with that being said, we will listen to the tenants first. You got to be sworn in.
Do everybody? Okay.
Solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury. Yes.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for taking the time to hear these complaints. I am here tonight as representation for three tenants. Each is an elder, 62 or older, with disabilities. After I speak with you, you will hear from these tenants or their representatives. Tenant Scott Olenek will share a statement, and then a statement by tenant Bessie Montzuris will be shared by her daughter, as her Parkinson's symptoms prevent her from effectively participating in this hearing. And then unfortunately, Charles LaPlante woke up with a terrible flu this morning, and I told him not to come because I got sick after the last hearing, and I didn't want to get sick again. Yeah. So his daughter is here with us today to share his statement as well. As we discussed last time, in addition to the state statute creating fair rent commissions, these tenants are protected by Connecticut's Just Cause statute, which requires rent increases to be fair and equitable. So we know that the legislature has twice contemplated the need to ensure that landlords are not treating some of our most vulnerable populations unfairly. Each of the tenants here has received notice of a rent increase between $450 and $800, representing increases of between 39 and 70%. If implemented, these new rents would mean these tenants would be paying between 65 and 91% of their monthly income to keep a roof over their heads. Additionally, we provided data demonstrating the lack of alternative available places that these folks can afford to move within this town. These increases are on their own facially harsh and unconscionable, and the context in which they are being demanded magnifies that unconscionability. Alpha owns 356 units across 20 properties in Connecticut and does business in the state through at least 28 sub-LLCs. For the purpose of this hearing, Alpha did not submit any evidence as to profits and losses related to operations, so the Commission should presume that operating expenses are a non-issue. They did, again, provide data on their mortgage, and this is what we discussed last time, that these rent increases are not necessary to cover their operating expenses. Instead, we have a purchasing expense issue. So we know that the land records show that Alpha purchased the property for $8.4 million from a local Niantic landlord. The property was not on the market. Alpha pursued this owner for 2 years and financed the purchase with a bridge loan of $7.75 million, which is a 24-month loan with an interest rate of 10.99%. So Alpha's monthly mortgage payment is high because of their choice, their preconceived, deliberate business decision to put down less than 10% upfront and take out a high-interest, high-risk loan. And this is part of Alpha's investment strategy. They target what they refer to as off-market value-add multifamily properties. In non-jargon terms, they target properties owned by local mom and pops who have kept rents at a reasonable price, which they are able to do because they either own the property outright or it's well-financed. They've had it for a while. They pursue those owners, pushing them to sell, purchase the property for a certain amount, believing it's undervalued. They then raise rents to increase the property's income and in turn its value on paper, and then they either sell it off at a higher price or refinance for a higher loan amount. I also wanted to mention Alpha submitted evidence regarding before and after photos of other buildings that they own in their portfolio. This is not only irrelevant, but a distraction. We are here today discussing excessive rent increases at 468 Main Street, and there is no evidence that the income from an increase in rental charges has been or will be reinvested in improvements to this property or these specific units. Instead of putting more money down up front, Alpha has shifted the cost of financing their purchase to these tenants. It's not appropriate, because when they turn around and sell or refinance for a higher loan and pocket the difference, tenants are not getting any of that investment value. There's not an operating expense issue here. There's a purchasing expense issue resulting from their own intentional strategy, and as such, we believe the Commission should give less weight to the element of debt service in Circumstance 7 of the considerations laid out in 7-148C. It is behavior of corporations like Alpha, who've been increasing the dominance of investors in rental housing, that has led to a property's function as a commodity, taking precedence over its utility as a place to live or its value as a home. When the market is failing to meet the basic needs of society, the government has a role to assist those in need. In the January hearing and in the documentation provided today by Alpha, there is a lot of information about capital A, capital H, affordable housing, right? We heard a lot about the need for more affordable housing provided by the state and municipality. While subsidized, incentivized, formal, like capital A, capital H, affordable housing, while that context is broadly intertwined with the issues that bring us here today, it is ultimately a separate policy mechanism from fair rent commissions. All legislation is enacted in the context of and in relation to other legislation. Fair rent commissions were contemplated by a bipartisan committee as one mechanism in a broader statutory scheme to maintain housing affordability for all of Connecticut's renters. The legislature specifically adopted legislation enabling fair rent commissions to prevent, as at the time one Greenwich representative put it, rent gouging of market rate tenants through massive rent increases. And at the time he was quoted as saying anything between 25 to 100%. East Lyme established this fair rent commission to protect its residents, and the commission's job is to be the conscience of your community and assist the parties here tonight in finding a fair and equitable resolution. We ask that the commission find that the landlord's proposed rent increases for these tenants are harsh and unconscionable. We suggest the commission allow a 7% rent increase and ask that they limit the increases they allow to no more than 10%. Finally, for all these cases, we ask that you issue decisions that are effective for 12 months, giving tenants peace of mind and protection against retaliation and future rent increases. Mr. LaPlante's prior lease is still in effect, so that decision should be effective upon the expiration of that lease on the 28th of February. For tenants whose prior leases are still in effect, okay, I just said that. Mr. Olenik's prior lease expired on July 31st of 2024, and Ms. Montzuris's prior lease expired at the end of January of this year. For them, we leave it to the discretion of the commission to determine if your decision is effective as of the date of deliberation or retroactive to the complaint. But we will point out that Ms. Montzuris did not receive the requisite 45-day notice of her rent increase. We'll follow what is here on the agenda for tonight to have each tenant come up and share a brief statement of their experience. So we'll start with Mr. Olenek. Scott, if you want to come, you can sit right here. Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Here's the mic.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Scott Olenek. I have been a tenant at Windward Village for 16 years, since 2008. I am now 73 years old. I have worked my whole life, and I am retired, and my only source of income is Social Security. I had a written annual lease that was up on July 31st, 2024. The old owner, my rent was $1,050 a month. When Alpha took over as owner, I thought that I was going to have to move elsewhere. It was a very confusing time for me. But Jennifer Yu, who was a social worker at East Lyme that I met with, told me that I could stay there for another year if I paid a rent increase, which is $1,750 a month. And I did. I think she spoke with someone from Alpha, so Alpha gave me a lease to sign that said my monthly rent would be $1,750 a month, and I accepted because I didn't think I had any choice. I thought I had to accept the rent increase or move out. Also, during the time I thought I had to move, I did look at other places to live. I even fill out applications for a couple of apartments. In one apartment, I got on a waiting list, but they said it could be 3 or 4 more years before I could get on it. It is also extra difficult for me to find another place to live because I need a first floor unit due to a pinched nerve in my right leg, which affects me mobily. So I have been paying $1,750 a month. I only get $1,929 a month for Social Security. I now realize that the rent increase was too high, and I have much less money every month to pay for my other bills, like utility bills, telephone bills, my auto loan, and other things I need, like new glasses. This is very uncomfortable for me and can be very stressful at times. There have been no upgrades made to my apartment. I love Niantic because the people everywhere are so friendly at the banks, stores, and other residents at Windward Village. I don't have a family around, so the community is important to me. I like that it is safe and walkable to things I need. My apartment is also close to my doctor that I need to see every 6 months for checkup for any reoccurrences of cancer. I want to keep living here, but I need to make sure that I can afford it. Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Long. You have been paying $1,750 since July 31st of last year?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Olenek, I have one more question for you. You said
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you for coming, by the way. You said there's been no improvement since Alpha took over the property. Is that including no new carpeting, no new appliances, nothing?
I need garbage disposal. That was all. I called, when mine stopped, I called the maintenance department and told them about it, and they came out and fixed it. That was all. That's the only issue I ever had.
Any complaints about inside your unit? Everything works fine?
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. I'm very happy. In fact, I'm totally happy with everything that goes on there. And I have been ever since I came to live there.
Thank you.
So then, going in order. Oh.
Well, won't I have the opportunity to ask the commission to ask the witness a question?
Yeah, the witness.
Okay. So, hang on a
Sorry,
second.
anyone else? Yeah.
Well, I believe you said I had to ask it through you. And when your opening instructions was that I would be afforded the opportunity to ask questions, but I would have to direct them to the commission.
That's fine.
Okay. So the proper decision is based on gross household income and not just any select income like Social Security. So my question is for him to please describe his investment income, including what's at a company called Wealth Management, what's at Merrill Lynch, et cetera, et cetera. Because obviously there's no way if he only had $1,929, he was paying $1,750 successfully since July 31. So we'd like him to give a full picture. At one point he said it was only Social Security. We'd like him to now please explain what is his investment income and to give you more accurate information upon which to act.
I was going to ask that question, but he got up, how he was surviving on
Yeah.
that amount of money. Do you have any other income of any kind?
No, sir.
All you have is Social Security,
That's all.
okay? Because I was curious how you were functioning on a couple $100. Got to be tough.
Can I ask some specific questions then?
Oh, yes, sir.
Is that okay?
So for instance, do you have an account in Merrill Lynch?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and does that provide you with interest or dividend income?
A lot of that money is invested in stocks and bonds. And I got a couple $1,000s invested in gold. But that money in gold, I cannot touch.
And how about your accounts at Wealth Management? Are they paying interest and dividends?
I'm sorry, assets are not one of the 13 factors, so I just want to be very clear about that. And I object to intense questioning of Mr. Olenek.
So I'm not asking about the asset. I haven't asked them, like, how much does he have at Merrill Lynch? But I'm asking about the income derived from it. If you have $1 million, it's kicking off interest and dividends. And that notices, that's what I've been asking about, his interest and dividend, his investment income, not the amount of the asset. It's like one's on a balance sheet, one's on an income statement. So I'm asking about his income statement. Like what would show up on his tax return, right? You don't have to disclose if you have $1 million at Merrill Lynch on your tax return, but you would have to disclose all those 1099s, all those for interest and dividends. So I'm asking about, like, what his tax return would show, not his balance sheet.
I wanted to point out to the commission that, first of all, it's appropriate to allow the attorney for Alpha ask the complainant questions directly if the commission so chooses to allow that to happen. And also that if you look at our ordinance, it lists the 13 factors, but it also says nothing in this section shall preclude the commission from considering other relevant circumstances. So it is within your discretion to do that.
Well, so the question is that income? Or is that just an asset? Does it come in as income on your tax return, along with your Social Security? Is it classified as income?
Yeah, I do get it, yes, I do, it is. I have to report that every year to Social Security, yes.
Can-
And my, excuse me, one more thing, I was told by my attorney up in Glastonbury, Mr. Robert Hale, told me not to mention anything else about any other income besides my Social Security. He told me not to mention anything else.
I would like to clarify that Attorney Robert Hale is a friend of Mr. Olenek and counseled him prior to him coming to us.
I went to him before you people.
And that Mr. Olenek is referring to his assets, and he misspoke.
I agree that Attorney Connery's probably not asked him to suborn perjury, but he does need to be honest with the commission for you to have the accurate information. And so when he says, I have no other income, I think we already know that that's not true. So let's get to the honest answers for everybody. If he has investment income, you should tell that so you have the right number. Because normally when you look at affordability, you say, okay, what is your gross income, household income, times 2.5, right? You don't want to be paying at most more than 40% as a guide for affordability, right? And so I need to know 40% of what? And he's told me a number that I know is not accurate. And so I'd like him to please, despite somebody else's instructions, be honest with you, tell us how much is the other income so we have the real number. So Sister Counsel here said the proposed rent is 91% of his income. Well, like with Peter Roberts and stuff, that's not true, right? That's I'm not saying she misled you on purpose, but she's now learning that's not true. It's not 91% because his income is much more than that. And to the extent that she's put in exhibits and referenced it in his opening argument, let's get to the truth.
I would just like to point out for the record that this complainant's testimony thus far has been straightforward and honest. So if the record reflects he's distorted the truth, I don't think that's accurate at all. I think he hasn't been asked the right question. So any accusation he's not giving honest testimony is not accepted and is not true. And the question has to be asked of Mr. Olenek, as far as monthly income you receive from your Merrill Lynch accounts or any other investment, can you give us an estimate if you do receive monthly or biannually or annually income from those investments? Can you give us a ballpark amount of what you receive?
Mr. Hill, my attorney said for me not to disclose that information with you people.
Mr. Olenek, you can, yeah.
I mean,
Do you get a monthly,
Huh?
do you get a monthly income from your investments?
I don't get any monthly income from them, no. Statements, monthly statements, I get monthly statements from them, but not any money, any checks or money.
I have a question. Do you get any interest dividends every month that goes into your checking account from any of those investments?
I think it's possible.
Okay, do you know how much?
No,
In the
I can't
interest?
think of how much, no.
So I'm not sure Mr. Olenek is prepared to answer these questions. If this is a point of contention, then we can continue this hearing to next month, and we can work with Mr. Olenek on getting his tax returns.
That would probably be a good idea. So this could be clarified and be more accurate
I
for
would,
everybody's sake.
in the interest of time, I would say that we would continue the hearing, but ask that he have homework, and never too old for homework, that he produce the tax returns, let's say, within 1 week, or some reasonable time for you to have that further information to make your decision, but not waste a month, essentially. I mean, that's not necessary. We're in the time of year where people are gathering, and if he doesn't have this 2024, we'll take even the 2023 as presumably representative, and he could produce that within a week, and then you could come to your decision closer to when you're hearing the information.
I'm not sure it's possible to get that done in a week.
Well, what would be a reasonable time frame?
I'm not sure. I would have to discuss that with Mr. Olenek.
Okay.
But he doesn't use the computer, so.
Can I talk?
Do you have more comment?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. A lot of this money's all tied up. A lot of this money I cannot touch.
I don't think we're concerned about what you can touch and what you can't touch.
Well,
I think,
I have to be concerned. It's my money, my investment, my life.
No, I understand that, but dollar amount wise, what you have in your investment is an asset. But if you get paid interest every month that goes into your checking account, that would be
I
considered.
got a you mean are you referring to my regular checking account?
Well,
I do have a regular checking account with Merrill Lynch, Bank of America. Is that what you're referring to?
Does your interest dividends from whatever you have, does that go into that checking account? Or
No.
does it go into a checking account that you are not allowed to
It
touch,
goes-
like it's earmarked
Yes,
for something?
yes, that is correct.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion that maybe one way around this is for Mr. Olenek to produce his 1099s, which he must have now that everyone's getting ready to prepare their tax returns. This way, if dividends are being reinvested, if interest is being reinvested, the commission will know that from 1099s, and then he doesn't have to disclose his tax returns, and then any personal information on his 1099s could easily be redacted.
I have an appointment to have my taxes done on the 30th or the 31st of the last Friday of March. And I got them all in the file, so I got everything all in order. The problem is, if I take anything apart, I'll probably lose it.
1099s are required by law, I think, to have been issued by now, so he has them today.
I do, sir, I do have them.
And if you could go to Staples or somewhere and make a photocopy, never separate yourself from your originals, the photocopy could go to the commission.
Perhaps the staff person could help, your staff person could help.
Yeah, she can help you. If you give her your 1099, she'll make a copy and you can put it right back where it was.
Or down, I have to bring it down here, right?
Yes.
Where's your office?
My office is downstairs, right at the bottom.
And you are, I'm sorry,
This is Stacy. We can talk about it.
oh,
Yeah, we can.
that's fine.
Oh,
we'll
I'm
talk
sorry.
about- Yeah, no, that's okay. We'll talk about it at the end. We'll coordinate with Stacy.
We're not there yet. Nothing further.
Nothing else? Shall we move on to the next?
Thank you, Scott.
what's it?
You're all set. Thank
Oh,
you.
uh,
You can sit back down.
No, any other people, any of you other have any questions you want to ask me while I'm here? Okay.
No, I think we're good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You did a fine job.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, so next on the agenda is Bessie Montserrat, and as it says, her Parkinson's symptoms prevent her from effectively participating in this hearing, so her daughter Marcy is here to share a statement on her behalf and is prepared to answer questions if the commission or the other party has them.
Good evening. My name's Marcy Cunningham, and I am the daughter of Bessie Montserrat, who is a tenant at Windward Village. Due to a medical issue, she was unable to attend tonight, so I will be reading her statement. Good evening, committee members. My name is Bessie Montserrat. I am 90 years old, a widow, and disabled with Parkinson's disease. I've lived in Niantic for 71 years, ever since my high school graduation in 1954. I've resided in Niantic Village for nearly 3/4 of a century. My late husband Bill and I raised our family here and have always been active members of the community. We always committed to a wide range of civic and community activities, such as Niantic Center School PTA president in the 60s, and to serving for decades on the Zoning, Harbor Management, Zoning Board of Appeals, East Lyme Scholarship Committee, Library Board, to name just a few of the many other community activities we participated in during critical years of growth in Niantic. We always considered it a privilege to live in this wonderful town and felt we were responsible for giving back. I've worked in the community as the first guidance secretary at the new East Lyme High School and later as a receptionist and assistant in my husband's local business. After my husband's death, I found it too difficult to maintain our family home in the village. I moved from living alone to living with my daughter as I waited a long time for an apartment to become available at Windward Village. The complex was wonderful in every way. Clean, well-maintained, friendly, and most importantly, affordable. My income is limited to Social Security and a very small veteran widow's payment. I did not simply move into an apartment. I moved into a vibrant, friendly, safe, and well-run and maintained community. My doctors have advised that it is crucial for me to remain mobile and active, and the location of my apartment on Main Street helps me by promoting wellness through walking or social engagement with the community. Since I no longer drive, living on Main Street with its sidewalks, benches, and crosswalks provides a perfect home for me. On February 1st, 2023, I began living at Windward with a rent of $1,050 a month plus utilities. In February of 2024, my rent was raised to $1,150. There was a local manager, Leah Rand, and Luis, the live-in property maintenance man. Both the manager and Luis were always timely in meeting all renters' needs, and problems were addressed immediately and professionally. The grounds were beautifully maintained with attention to safety and cleanliness. The front lawn was regularly watered, annual flowers were planted, there was necessary tree trimming, etc. The common areas of the complex were, in short, immaculately maintained. Our maintenance man, Luis, not only took great pride in the complex, he was also a friend to the residents and an individual invested in the community and in our lives. There was always a friendly face around, and we knew each other on a first-name basis. Since Alpha Capital became the owners, much has changed, particularly with maintenance, upkeep, and communication. The lawn is never watered. It has dried up to a yellow crisp. The garbage has on occasion piled up, and in general, maintenance has been a big problem. The responses to problems are not timely. Many times, an arranged appointment is a no-show or several hours late. Problems often require multiple returns of maintenance and/or result in a solution that either doesn't work or is merely a Band-Aid for a larger problem. These and other problems are frustrating as well as unsafe. For example, During the heat wave this past summer, my air conditioning was not operating at all. Apparently, the original mechanics were long past their useful and functional life. Upon reporting the problem, it was days before maintenance came, and then said it was supposedly fixed. After less than a day, the air conditioner was no longer working again. While the governor was opening up cooling stations, I was forced to open up my entry door wide to the hallway and the common hall in hopes of capturing some cool air from the hall. And this is how I slept, with my door open. My son-in-laws also came to help by setting up portable fans to try unsuccessfully to cool the apartment. I worried about an intruder, but I had no choice. When yet another maintenance person finally arrived, he determined that the air conditioner unit needed complete replacement. He said he needed approval from the owners. Approximately 2 weeks later, the unit was finally replaced. All in all, it was an untenable and unsafe situation for approximately 1 month. There have also been other similar maintenance issues. I believe that every attempt is made by Alpha Capital to spend as little money as possible, and many times this results in long, drawn-out maintenance issues and a general overall decline in building appearances and livability. My unit is original. It is not updated. I must assume the appliances are original, as are the dated cabinets, Formica counters, the bath, etc. Although basic, the unit is my home, and I want to stay there. There are no other appropriate rental opportunities for me in the village, let alone the town. In the beginning of January, I received a phone call from the manager for the new owners, Alpha Capital, informing me verbally that if I wanted to renew my lease on February 1st, the rent would be increased to $1,650 a month plus utilities, a whopping 43% increase in just 1 year. My daughter inquired if they would do any better, and we were told the most they could do was to reduce it $50 to $1,600 a month. Additionally, this verbal notice was not in writing and did not meet the legal requirement for notice 45 days in advance of a rental increase. I am thankful for the creation of this Fair Rent Committee, and I remain hopeful that the committee will consider the points I've made and approve a reasonable and affordable rent. I want to remain an independent resident. I want to stay in my own apartment at Wynwood Village for as long as I am capable. Lastly, I hope to continue to be a visible and vital resident of Niantic, a small town where our family has spent 3/4 of a century contributing. Thank you very much for your time and consideration of my situation. Yours truly, Bessie Mountzuris. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any witnesses or anybody with you that wants to speak?
No. But I could answer any questions on her behalf.
If the commission has no questions, I would ask you to also provide information as to investment income.
I can tell you right now what it is. My mother has an IRA, mostly a beneficiary IRA with Merrill Lynch. She gets approximately a minimum distribution of $5,000 once a year. She does not have tax returns to provide to you, even though she has an accountant, because with her, she's not filed for the last 4 years. As a single widowed individual, after standard deductions, she is not required to file.
My other question would be, since Ms. Mountzuris is actually a resident only 6 months of the year, to ask where else does she reside? Does she have another property?
She is a legal full-time resident of Connecticut. She resides there unless she goes on vacation with myself down to my own home, not hers. She owns no other property anywhere. the 6-month period means a back and forth. She's not able to travel alone. And I come up and get her, go back in the wheelchair transport to my home so she can enjoy the warmth and sit out and see what's going on, and I bring her back.
Okay, so that, in her complaint sheet, the one mentioned 6 months, so that's what you're saying, how it's 6 months here and 6 months there?
She did not mention 6 months.
In her complaint? I thought so.
No, she did not. I mean, during a 6-month period, when I'm there, she goes back and forth a few times. If there's a doctor's appointment visit, I bring her back. Her doctors are at Yale. She needs to see them regularly, and I bring her.
So
It's
I
expensive,
think the
too.
reference here is on the complaint form, under described problem, and I'll quote, "As I stay with my daughter, approx period, 6 months per year." So you could explain that more?
Yes. I have, my husband's here, my home is here, I'm a resident here. I also have a place in Florida, and I go back and forth, like I'm here today.
Right.
Since Avello came to New Haven, I'm able to get a quick flight in and a quick flight back. So I bring her when I can, and I bring her back over the 6 months that I stay in Florida. She does not come and stay for 6 months.
Right. So
She
they're
can't. She has-
periodic short stays.
Yes, yeah, like
Thank you.
right now, she's down there. She could not come up here to testify. I came up last night. I'm flying back tomorrow morning because I have someone staying with her.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Question. Her monthly income down here is $24.57,
Yes.
and then there's also a
There,
dividend on top of that she gets every year?
she takes a $5,000 minimum distribution. I mean, but she's 90, so that's ending down the road based on average life expectancy.
Right, so that
But
would mean that she would
she-
get another $400 and something a month?
Right, she doesn't take it monthly, she takes it once a year and then uses it towards utilities or whatever she needs, groceries.
Okay, but in point, that would increase her income by that
Right.
much money.
Yes,
So instead of $24.57, it would actually be like $29.57?
right, we
Is that
we
accurate?
were considering that an asset, so I didn't list it for her, but that is the case.
Yeah, 28.73. 28.73. Okay. And that's all she has for income
That's
versus
it.
Social Security?
Yes.
Okay, that should be, is that sufficient for you?
Right, that's appropriate, that's what we're getting at. I did have one other question, in terms of what the mother could afford. Isn't it true that you contacted Alpha and said if we reduce it to $1,500 a month, that would be acceptable, and you would then not need to proceed with your complaint?
I did, I was talking verbally. I figured that if they would do that, then if we had to, we'd come up with the extra money, or she would. I said, if you're going to do this, I need to know so we can make, arrangements and a lease. I never heard back. She said she would talk to the owner and let us know. I'm not saying she could afford $1,500. I'm saying that under the circumstances, placed on a phone call in that situation, that sounded to be okay, although it really wasn't. But we were aware of people having to pay $1,900 and getting lease renewals of $1,800, and she was afraid that it would be even more.
Because my client is willing to accept that offer.
But she's no longer willing to pay that.
Well, maybe something close to that. Would that be?
Well, I would also like to say that the opposing party refused to go to mediation prior to this hearing. That's why we're here. So they passed on that opportunity.
I mean, it's a little different when you have something in writing in front of you and you're looking at it and thinking about it and doing this. This was a phone call and no response afterwards. Months went by, a month and a half, no response. I even called and somebody, Rain, I think, said she had to check with owners, and if that was the case, if they would accept it, she would let me know. And I said, well, then I'll have to discuss it with my mother. I take care of my mother's finances. I take care of all her bills. And I take care of all her business matters, if there are any, and doctors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, maybe we'll just move on to the next one, and then we'll just come back to this one during deliberations.
So then we have Charles LaPlante, and as I said, he is down with the flu today, so we have his daughter as well, who will read a statement on his behalf and can answer any questions if needed.
Good evening. My name is Britt Spiegel, and I am Charles LaPlante Jr.'s daughter. I'm going to read a short statement that my father had pre-written out. Unfortunately, he's terribly sick. I was born and raised in Niantic, and as many people in the room know, I owned C. LaPlante Building and Remodeling with my brother, Craig. I go by the nickname Rusty. We built homes here in Niantic and did remodeling and additions. I am deeply connected to the Niantic community. I attend church at St. Agnes, which is a walking distance from my apartment. I was diagnosed 10 years ago with melanoma, stage 4, and brain cancer. And I require testing and doctor's appointments monthly. Both my son and my daughter live in town. I feel blessed to be able to live very close to them and see them often. The proposed rent increase I received is outrageous and unfair. After 38 years of local business, I live on Social Security and my pension. If I had to pay an increase, I would have to cut back on groceries and activities with my children and grandchildren. I enjoy trying to read someone else's writing. I can't imagine moving. I'm 77 years old. It would be terribly difficult. I've looked for other places that were meant for people on fixed incomes, and the waiting list is nearly 2 years long. Since Alpha took over, the management of the property has not been great. I've tried calling about renewing my lease. I even attempted phone calls for a counteroffer, but never heard back. I called again recently and could not get a hold of anyone on the phone who knew what was going on about the rent increases. The only improvements I have seen were new carpets in the hallways and new paint job in the hallways. I am dedicated to this town, and I have put so much into over the years. I cannot afford such a high rent increase on top of all my other bills. Thank you for your time.
Now, you said his monthly income is $2178.88, and he also has a pension, or is that including the pension?
Go ahead.
If you're reading my summary statement, that is a combination of the Social Security and the pension, which were both, there's documentation of both.
So that's his total income.
Yes, if my math is correct.
Okay.
I'm around.
Okay. Well, because she had mentioned that he, with the business, he had a pension and he had Social
Both of
Security.
those papers are
His pension looks like it's
Point of order,
$4,500
please.
a year.
Point of- You just mentioned the number 2,100 something. The exhibit I have is from Mr. Council is 2,335. Seems like we have two different numbers for the.
Okay, I'm just looking.
Okay. Right there. Plus, what is the market of
They're all the same, so I'm not sure.
But he just quoted.
Absolutely.
Mr. Carpentier, how much do you have showing as the?
Well, just on the one that I have in front of me is 2178.88, but
And you're looking at Exhibit F summary page, or you're looking at,
Exhibit F shows 2335.
Right, that's what I'm pointing out, with two different numbers from
Yep.
council.
It's acknowledged.
Okay. I would rather use the higher number, if you don't mind.
I see it. I see both.
Okay. The other correction in Exhibit C is the proposed rent was not 1,950. We're not trying for 1,950. It's the proposed rent is 1,675. If you could please correct the record there.
Mr. LaPlante received notice of 1950, and he did not receive any other notice, despite trying to contact management multiple.
Well, I mean, I guess at some point we could produce that documentation, or we would just withdraw any seeking of 1,950 and say we're seeking 1,675 at this procedure.
I can't produce the lease that was sent to you.
That still applies here, isn't it, to 1,600?
I think that's already, oh, this.
My only question would be a request for, like this witness as well, to please obtain any other investment type income if there's any interest or dividends.
we got different numbers here. This one here is
There is one in here
Isn't
for
that one
that
thing
he
with
gets.
That's net after they take out the 185 for Medicare and whatever it is.
right, but that's the number we got to be.
Right, but so
Dealing
you can
with
see
which
that the numbers we were talking about, 2,100 or 2,300, don't include everything, and they've been kind enough to provide.
Well, it says right here his social security is 2145,
Okay.
and that he gets a pension of $4,510 a year. So
Just
if,
about $375 a month or something like that.
Yeah, my summary number
Yeah.
is a combination of the Social Security and a monthly.
right, which
estimate
adds
of
up
that
to the,
20, of that W2.
right.
So what is our real number? 1960 plus the 3 something?
The summary number that I provided in Exhibit F should be the Social Security plus the pension that the W-2 provides it yearly, and I divided it
Okay,
by
one,
12 and added it.
But his monthly social security is $1960 a month, because they take $185 for
Yeah.
Medicare.
Okay,
So
yeah,
what he
so I
gets a
think-
month is $1960.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
So he's really the $2,300 range.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's a 1099.
2336.
Yeah, 2336.
Oh, yeah. They have that.
Can this witness speak to whether there is any other investment income? So neither of these are investment income, they are pensions.
Some pension and social security.
Right, so is there any other, like, bank accounts that kick off
Does
interest?
he have any
and
other
dividends?
income of stocks, bonds, any of those
I
sorts?
know he has a Edward Jones account, and it looks as it possibly was deposited. I could be mistaken about what this deposit means, but I believe it says 600, and that was in 1 month span. I don't know if that's every month or quarterly, or I really can't speak to that. I know he has an Edward Jones account. It's investments. And that's about,
Well, they're gonna need to know if that's monthly, annually, bi-monthly, if it's an income from an asset that he has, because that would be considered income, and that would go on his, considered as income.
That's about all I have. So you're going to have to either require it from my father, or I can't really speak to what I don't know.
Okay?
Do you know what he does on his income tax?
I have his statement from his pension. I think these are all the things you have. I don't, other than his statement from Charter Oak, deposits that he had taken in January, 250, and I believe that was for the pension, and $600 deposit, and $1960 for Social Security. So that's all I'm showing for
That's still only like
Edward
23.
Jones. It just says Edward Jones deposit $600.
May I take a look at the statement
I think
that you have in your hand?
I would prefer to ask Mr. LaPlante for his consent.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then ask that he would turn it over to...
Yeah, I don't
He
have.
doesn't have to give us. Yeah. So we can, as with Mr. Olenek, we can follow up with Mr. LaPlante
That's fine.
and provide Stacy something with him.
Okay.
What regard?
Well, then I guess we'll move on to the next one.
So then we have Peter Roberts, which there's nothing much to say. It was just, basically, as we understand it, would just be a matter of redeliberation,
Yeah.
because the deliberation had relied on an error on my part, and I think that the initial copy of his proof of income that would have shown my error was printed out in a way that was not so clear. So we just re-provided that. Hopefully it's clearer, and that, so I don't think we need to do anything about that either.
Well, we can either leave the rent the way it is or adjust it, correct?
Right, and so that would be like part of the deliberation.
Right.
What's the difference, upside or downside? Dollar
600.
amount?
I think
It's about $600.
Less? A month?
And the rent was $12.60. That's what was agreed upon. So we can either leave it that way, we can lower it, we can adjust it, whatever we feel as a commission is appropriate. So we can do that one in deliberations?
Yeah.
All right. Then after that,
we are not representing Mr. John Lazarus.
but I do believe somebody's here to represent him, aren't they?
He's here. Well, yeah, is that, how,
Yeah, how do you want to do?
He can represent himself.
okay.
He was sworn in. wasn't he?
Montserrat from Windward Village.
Yeah, he was sworn in.
Okay.
I've been living at Windward Village for since October of 2021 with my wife. One-bedroom apartment. My main issue, of course, is the rent control issue. Alpha proposed $16.75 a month, which we are paying on our old lease now $11.50 a month. So it's quite radical. And I'm hoping I get it, a little bit lower than that. Now, I got my 2024 tax return. We filed jointly, $90,695. For now, I took my 401k out, which was $10,373, and it left, so if you subtract that, it gives It's $83,322. Now, I'm a caregiver, so the type of job I have is hourly, and it fluctuates a lot. You know, there's a lot of times I could be making virtually nothing, and sometimes it's a feast or famine, the job. Either you have your clients, and you can make, 60 hours a week, 100 hours a week, 80 hours a week. So, year by year, it fluctuates so much. This is what I have for this year.
What was your tax return, say, for the year before or the year before that? Is it consistent with that amount?
No, I believe 2023, I don't have it on me, it was like 60s, in the 60s, thousands. So there's a huge,
So 50 would be a bad year, 60 would be a little better, and then this year was a good year.
this year was a good year,
Now, how many years have you been doing this?
Total about 12 years, about 12, 13 years.
And in that 12 years, has there been a consistent income?
No, it's been a roller coaster. Some years it's feast or famine. But
But less than 50 any of those years?
they were less than, in those 12 years, yeah. They were less than 50, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
John, any improvements to your unit since Alpha purchased the property?
Actually, a few days ago, they put in a really nice refrigerator. I believe it was stainless steel. It's wider, efficient. It's a much better upgrade. Mm-hmm.
In the income, does that include your wife's income as well?
Yes, joint.
May I inquire briefly? The size of the fridge, and I'm glad that you like it. They also do garbage disposal?
Oh, yes, that's right. They did a garbage disposal that same day. Yeah, that's right.
You're fine. And the income you're reporting, that includes any investment income? Is it consistent with everybody?
I have nothing else, just my 401k I took out,
Okay,
and nothing else.
okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Well, we can move that to deliberations.
Thanks, John.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Anybody want to make a motion? Anyone want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Are we not?
Point of order, the landlord may be able to make a presentation as well.
Oh, the landlord here?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
I'll make a kind of a brief opening, and then we have the two principals to make their to produce the evidence. We've handed out the documents, but to help you go through it.
Yep.
As before, I am glad to be here on behalf of the landlord, Alpha, as property manager for Alpha Niantic LLC, the owner. We offer evidence as to all 13 factors that are by law what you're supposed to consider, not one to the exclusion of the others. The tenants, as I think we've shown, are providing evidence on one part of one of the factors, their own income. And even then, they're providing like puzzle pieces that don't add up to a complete puzzle, complete picture. All right, so they're not, in sometimes cases, they're not including the spouse. The most recent one did, and that's very honorable and accurate. Others have not been including their investment income, and some of them have substantial investment income. And so that distorts the information you're getting from tenants council about what percentages of their income. It's always less than she says. Because when you come in with the additional information that you need about their investment income or spouse's income, it's important to be looking at gross income, not net, because that's how affordability is calculated generally. And generally, you've been getting net income. It even says net income on these handouts and exhibits from Tenants Council. This is not low-income housing, and you shouldn't be treating it like low-income housing. And there's no Section 8 benefits here. There's, some other property. My client would be glad to work with the town, indicated that last time, to create some low-income housing for East Lyme, but this isn't it. And so nobody's going to rush in. No government, federal, state, local is helping the landlord come up with the money needed to make the improvements that everybody wants. People, and I'd be the same way, kind of want their cake and eat it too. I don't want to pay, but I want all these improvements. Well, it takes money to make those improvements, and we can't starve the landlord to please the tenant. The landlord has to be given sufficient funds to make the kind of improvements, like new refrigerators, like garbage disposals, like the painting, like everything that they want. So I would say that if you look closely, we have facts and figures that add up to what is a fair market rental, and it is more than just 7% of what had been too low of an income, a rent. The prior landlord just let it go. And I used the example last time, I'll use it again. It's sort of like the gas station's having a contest at the, and the gas is 99 cents. And everybody pays that 99 cents, like the 99 cent, $99 rent. And then the contest is over, right? The gas station can't afford to do that forever. Well, this landlord can't afford to do the $99 rentals forever. It's time to get towards market. And I will address a point that was made tonight in the opening argument. My client, as he'll indicate, and indicated last time, did not put down less than 10% of the purchase price. Right? That was a statement made. My client put down $1.5 million at the closing because there are multiple other charges, right? You have to pay a whole variety of charges. We could get you it's called a CD, the closing disclosure. It used to be called a real estate settlement statement, also called a HUD-1. I'm using all these terms because at different years they've been known by different things, and you've probably bought or sold property, your own house, and had those. And we can get you that if it's requested to show that my client actually put down almost 20%. This wasn't a low ball, right? And the theory being, if you finance 99%, then your interest and principal payments are higher, and therefore, of course, you do need more money from the property through rental income. They put down $1.5 million. That's not unreasonable at all. And that's almost 20% of the purchase price. So we deny that the amount that's needed to cover the interest and principal is anything other than normal. Okay. With that, I would turn it over to, and again, if you want that settlement statement, we'll get it for you so you can see. But otherwise, I turn it over to my clients to make the presentation of their exhibits.
Oh, I'd like to see that statement.
Yes, we'll get it for you. It's fair that I have one more too.
All right. Good evening. My COO, Johnny Diaz, came out here last time, and after months of preparation, delivered a very well thought out case. Not only did he present comparable properties demonstrating the market in East Lyme, but he also emphasized the importance of affordable housing in the area and financial infeasibility of forcing private landlords to subsidize units, as outlined in the Affordable Housing Assessment for East Lyme. He provided a breakdown of our building and maintenance expenses and showcased our consistent 4- and 5-star maintenance surveys results. Additionally, he spoke about our company and CEO, Tyler Smith. I want to begin this by introducing myself. My name is Rain Kinselli. I am the property manager for Alpha Capital, and I would like to share a bit of my background with you, as I believe it's important for you to understand where I'm coming from. I grew up with a single mother, and I lived in various apartments my entire life. I got my first job at 14, and I ended up working in restaurants, and I worked my way up to general manager by the time I was 17. I had my daughter in 2020. She's 4.5 now, and I began working for Alpha Capital in July of 2023. I've always been obsessed with real estate and business, so this was truly a dream come true. On top of that, my mother has been a social worker for the past 20 years and currently runs her own private practice. Because of this, connecting with people comes naturally to me. After being at Alpha for quite some time, I recognize that we manage a significant number of subsidized units, 15% to be exact. This requires me to work with various social workers and housing authorities across the state of Connecticut. Just last month, I received a call from the mayor's office in New London asking if we could relocate a tenant from a condemned building. We gladly accommodated them. Given the nature of our business, I find it easy to empathize with residents. Opposing counsel has commented that we make harsh business strategy moves. I've had extensive discussions with Tyler and Johnny about how we can be empathetic while still achieving our goals. We are not driven by greed. Our approach is strategic, but above all, we are driven by the people and communities we serve. In my entire time at Alpha Capital, we have only evicted tenants who have defaced our properties, or tenants who have destroyed units, or tenants that owe us more than $10,000. We do not believe in being slumlords. We believe in making necessary upgrades to enhance and empower communities we serve. Nothing makes me happier than when a tenant renews their lease and is thrilled by a newly upgraded unit. When we purchased 468 Main Street, we wanted to ensure our approach was as sensitive as possible. We knocked on doors and introduced ourselves, making the transition seamless by delivering our contact information on day one. We called the tenants to inform them of our market rates, and I let them know if they needed time to move, we would work with them, offering them anywhere between 1 to 6 months up to 9 months to help them with this transition. For residents who wanted to stay but had limited incomes, we continued to work with them by adjusting our market rates. For example, when Scott approached us, the social worker for the town of East Lyme, Jennifer Yu, gave us a call. We agreed to reduce our market rate and leave him on month to month until he found something more affordable. With that being said, I wanted to dive into...
Right, I'm just going to ask, if you have, for the rest of this presentation, could I ask that you actually take a look at the exhibit?
Yes.
It looks like this, right? It starts off personal statement.
This one, that was my personal statement. Starts here.
So their first page is this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it's the first page. It looks like this, titled Quick Facts. Yeah. And from here on out, I thought it'd be helpful if we were literally on the same page.
Yeah, you can read with me. I added these quick facts here just in case while you're deliberating, just to remind you of the numbers as well. I noticed in the last deliberations there was a couple things I just wanted to clarify. You had stated that John Vasco's unit size, which is 581 square foot, which it is. However, the 6 additional...
I'm sorry, I'm going to object to any conversation about a case that is not being heard tonight. Those cases were heard in February and they are closed. The decision has been issued.
Okay.
Isn't that Peter Roberts' case?
You can speak about Peter Roberts.
All right. Well,
He's being heard tonight. He's on the agenda.
Awesome. Peter Roberts, his unit is a 1-bedroom. I believe his unit square footage is 739 square feet, not 581 square feet. Just for reference, the 2 beds are 1160 square feet. And then there, yeah, it's fine. Ground. Alpha Capital understands tenant concerns, but wants to provide a full context of its mission and business approach. We are a small Connecticut-based company, not a corporate giant, with deep community ties and have a commitment to fair, responsible property management. Our founder, Tyler Smith, a North Haven native, built Alpha Capital from the ground up after facing personal setbacks, driven by a passion in real estate and a means to serve others. Since 2017, Alpha Capital has grown from 1 building to 364 units, reinvesting locally to improve housing and support community initiatives like toy drives and school supply programs. Unlike large out-of-state firms, we operate with transparency and maintain rents, prioritize tenant needs. While we don't control market rents, we keep renewal rates below market when possible and ensure well-maintained properties. Alpha Capital has actively sought to expand affordable and senior housing, but has faced zoning resistance, despite Connecticut's housing challenges. Municipal collaboration is essential to address this issue. Claims that we are part of a greedy landlord narrative are inaccurate. We strive to balance affordability with sustainability. Regarding rent increases, we inherited a property where previous owners kept rents artificially low while selling at today's market value. Instead of imposing abrupt changes, we engaged tenants, offered flexibility, and implemented gradual adjustments. Most tenants found no more affordable alternatives, and many chose to stay. Our rent strategy considers market conditions, property improvements, and fair rental practices. Alpha Capital remains dedicated to fair housing, responsible ownership, and community engagement. We will outline how our approach aligns with East Lyme's fair rent guidelines and why our rental adjustments are necessary and justified. In the exhibits, you'll find rent comparables showing, attached are rent comparables in East Lyme showing that our renewal rates remain below market. 9 new tenants, currently 1-bedroom units, $1,900 plus per month. These apartments offer central air, balconies, an elevator, and a secure building in a prime location. Market rate, not subsidized or deed restricted. Please refer to exhibits E through M. Affordable housing per Connecticut law applies to government-assisted or deed-restricted units for those spending 30% or less of their income on rent. In East Lyme, the area median income is $96,023, making 80% AMI is $76,818, and 50% AMI is $48,011. A HEPA senior living, a subsidized complex, charges between $1,200 and $1,250 monthly. A 10% increase on $1,100 rent still falls below subsidized housing rates and does not cover maintenance costs. The Norwich New London AMI is $75,000 with 80% AMI at $60,000 and 50% AMI at $37,500. Low-income rental rates are unsustainable without government support. Programs like the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit and Section 8 exist because very low-income rents do not generate enough revenue to cover expenses like taxes, insurance, labor, and maintenance. East Lyme has failed to meet Connecticut's 10% affordable housing target, shifting the burden onto private landlords without providing tax breaks or incentives. While the state acknowledges affordable housing needs government support, East Lyme expects private landlords to fill the gap at a financial loss. This approach leads to declining housing quality, reduced private investment, and exacerbated shortages. Sustainable rental rates are essential for maintaining properties, ensuring quality housing, and encouraging investment. Rent caps mirroring very low income rates without incentives are impractical and unfair. Fair rent laws should balance tenant protections with landlords' abilities to sustain their properties, making reasonable returns while keeping housing in good condition. Please refer to exhibits T, U, and V for reasonable accommodations. Additionally, as we assess the housing affordability in East Lyme and surrounding areas, it's important to highlight the available rental accommodations within New London County. Renters have access to a range of affordable options, with over 81 bedroom units priced under $1,400 and more than 42 two-bedroom units priced available under $1,600. These numbers demonstrate despite market pressures, our region still has attainable housing opportunities. Ensuring fair and sustainable rent practices will help maintain this accessibility for residents in need for affordable living options. Building expenses and maintenance investment. Maintaining a high standard of living at 468 Main Street, Niantic requires consistent investment. Since June 2024, our team has completed 345 work orders, demonstrating our commitment to prompt and effective maintenance. Residents appreciate these efforts, with maintenance surveys averaging 4 out of 5 stars across our portfolio. Many have noted that an improvement in service quality compared to past experiences. Skilled professionals and proactive management ensure a safe and functional, comfortable living environment, an essential component for our rental pricing. Please refer to Exhibits D for the maintenance surveys. Quality maintenance is not achieved at a minimal expense. Our investment directly enhances the resident's experience and preserves property value, justifying the fairness of current rental rates. As for property renovations and reinvestment, at Alpha Capital, rental income is reinvested directly into enhancing the living experience at 468 Main Street in Niantic. This includes cosmetic upgrades, improving amenities such as laundry facilities and mini gyms, adding community-oriented features such as a space for book exchange and book clubs inspired by resident feedback, which, as we explained last time, will be in phase 2 of our renovations. We are also addressing essential infrastructure needs, such as updating HVAC systems for year-round comfort and purchasing new appliances. To date, we've invested approximately $196,135 into these upgrades, working closely with the East Lyme Building Department to ensure compliance with local standards. Our goal is to create a comfortable, modern living experience where the residents feel valued. These improvements justify the fairness of our rental increases as they directly benefit the community and support the continued maintenance of the property. As for reasonable overhead expenses, operating 468 Main Street involves the substantial financial obligations essential for maintaining a property's safety, functionality, and appeal. These include annual taxes of approximately $90,000, which is $7,500 per month, insurance costs of around $78,680 annually, $6,556 per month, and a mortgage of $64,566 per month, totaling $78,622 in fixed expenses. As of January 2025, our current rent roll is $77,480 per month, which is below the monthly cost of these basic expenses. Unlike the previous owner who operated debt-free, we must cover significant mortgage payments and acquire and improve the property. Additionally, these basic costs do not cover other necessary expenses such as maintenance, utilities, staffing, ongoing renovations. With such financial realities, maintaining the property and investing in further improvements becomes challenging under low rental increases. Our rent increases are still below market rates, but are necessary for sustaining the property and its future improvements. It's also important to recognize that the responsibility for affordable housing should not fall solely on small businesses. The town of East Lyme repeatedly denied affordable and senior housing projects that could help alleviate this burden. Our rental increases reflect the economic realities of operating and improving the property, ensuring its sustainability and high quality of life for the residents. We believe this approach is both reasonable and necessary. To conclude, our request for a rent increase is essential to sustain and improve 468 Main Street. Our portfolio demonstrates a stronger commitment to affordable housing than East Lyme, where only 6.1% of housing is affordable, well below the 10% statewide goal. Despite our repeated outreach to the town for collaboration on affordable housing initiatives, we have faced resistance and inaction. Under Connecticut State Statute 8-30G, municipalities are required to have 10% of their housing stock as affordable, and developers can bypass local zoning if the target isn't met. We have chosen to work with East Lyme, but our proposals have faced setbacks. In contrast, our properties have 14% subsidized units and strong demand for market rate housing, as evidenced by 9 new tenants paying market rates. We've invested $196,135 in upgrades, including cosmetic improvements, better amenities, and system repairs, all with East Lyme's Building Department's approval. However, operational costs, taxes, insurance, and mortgage payments total more than $78,600 monthly, and exceeding the current rent roll of $77,480. These costs, compounded by maintenance and staffing expenses, cannot be sustained without appropriate rent adjustments. Our property's maintenance team has completed 345 work orders, spending over $21,300 on labor and material. With satisfaction ratings averaging 4 out of 5, providing this level of service requires adequate funding, which our rent increases will support. As the Mayor Passero of New London has recognized, increasing housing stock lowers rents. East Lyme should adopt a similar approach. Forcing us to operate at a loss through rent caps is unsustainable and erodes our investment. Delays needed housing progress. Given the fair rent principles, including rental comps, the area's AMI, and the quality of service and upgrades provided, our proposed rent adjustments are both fair and necessary. We urge the Commission to support our efforts to ensure the long-term viability of 468 Main Street and its positive impact on the community. Additionally, one last thing I did want to point out as well, not regarding a specific case, but it was also stated we had 40 out of 60 leases signed at market rate, and that was not true. We have 16 out of 60 signed at market rate. And that's it.
I'm trying to go over the math in my mind. So 16 out of 60. How many vacant?
Right now, we have 6 vacancies.
Okay, so that's 24.
We just signed 2 additional leases, so 18 out of 60.
18, so that's 26 out of 60. We took care of about 10 last month, so that's 36.
Then we have 6 leases that consist of tenants who required special accommodations due to fixed incomes.
So that's 42. So what about the 18 left? Where are they? Are they kind of in flux? They haven't come up for renewal yet, or?
I believe so. 16, 6. We said we took care of 12 last time, I think, or 11. 10?
Just approximate.
It's likely that their leases haven't renewed yet,
Yeah. Either they're coming up soon or,
or have expired.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Yeah, they've received everything, including a copy of a current rent roll.
And we can have time for rebuttal, and John as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So you've received additional materials, you know, that have the alpha cap on them, so you can look at them while they're deliberating.
So to begin, as I began last time, despite what Attorney Pascal said, we did provide evidence as to all relevant factors that we have access to. And whether we said that out loud explicitly or provided it in documentation, we did our jobs. As to the income issue, the tenants have been honest. We asked them for documentation of their income, which we defined as money coming in each month, right? We tried to be as clear as possible with them that that is the income, things that are coming in on a regular basis as your income. So there was obviously some confusion, and we are happy to provide the additional documentation that's necessary to provide the full picture as requested. So again, as to the issue of affordable housing, the broader context is irrelevant, right? Obviously, it's part of why we're here today, but for this determination, that context is irrelevant. Fair rent commissions were established as part of a larger housing scheme to prevent rent gouging in market rate tenants. It is not a rent cap, right? This is a process of individualized case-by-case rent stabilization to make sure that landlords are not rent gouging. As to fair market rents, overall, right, this factor in terms of, let me go back. So in terms of the market, right, this is just one of 13 factors. And market rate is not an independent analysis of what is fair. It is merely what other landlords are asking for. All landlords have an interest in raising rents in any given area, and it is hardly an objective measure. As landlords expand their portfolio, they have more and more power to set the market rate, and in Connecticut, our context has been exacerbated by larger landlords participating in unlawful price fixing. Finally, the market does not exist in a vacuum and is anything but fair. There are limitations to what makes markets work well, and when it comes to housing, those limitations are significant. As to the comparables, right? We also provided data on comparables. We are looking at, right, the factor is comparable rents in the neighborhood and municipality, right? That also, the other side of the coin is factors into the availability of places to which the individual tenant can afford to move, right? Those are kind of two factors in the law that are like two sides of the same coin. There are simply not a lot of available units, period. The other locations, as we provided in our documentation, that are offering or putting out rents that are somewhat equivalent to what they are asking for at 468 Main Street are simply not truly comparable. They are offering an extensive amount of amenities that are just not available at 468 Main Street. And then as to operating expenses, right? Despite kind of the rattling off of large numbers, tonight there was no documentation provided as to operating expenses. The documentation that was provided in January showed that, right, that profits and losses chart showed that with the regular profits and losses plus taxes plus insurance, they were still profiting. So again, it just comes down to this massive mortgage, which is, we believe that that factor should be weighed significantly less or at minimum differently because of the kind of debt that Alpha chose to take on. As they said, right, the local landlord who owned the property prior had a much lower mortgage, and because of that, they were able to make a decent profit while keeping rents at a reasonable price. A new buyer could have done the same thing if the purchase was well financed. You cannot poorly finance a building, put the cost of that business decision on the backs of working class tenants, and then profit on selling or refinancing after you increased the value of the property solely by increasing rents. That is having your cake and eating it too. The fact is, the more a property purchase is leveraged, right, the less invested in it, then the higher your interest rates are going to be. That's a fact. We reject the premise that this should be put on the back of tenants. You should have put more money down. You did not find yourself in this situation. Alpha knew exactly what they were doing, and they are doing it on purpose. Also, they are aware of the context of Connecticut and the possibility of challenges in front of a Fair Rent Commission. We, in my organization, have represented other tenants in Fair Rent Commission complaints against Alpha in other municipalities. Under these circumstances, we think that the element of debt service should be given less weight. As to the lovely presentation on character and background, nice to hear, also irrelevant. And we have also been involved in other cases where Alpha has used no-fault evictions to push tenants out of buildings that they have purchased. So just wanted to flag that. Similarly with the survey data, interesting, but we take issue. It's irrelevant. They are anonymous. So ultimately, right, circling back to why we're here, we are looking at whether a rent increase to a particular person is harsh and unconscionable. These rent increases are so large that on their own, they could be considered harsh and unconscionable. The other factors surrounding that make it even more so. And we will yield to Mr. Montzoris if he wants to make a final closing statement.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Then I shall. We stand by the comparables, including, I think, particularly AHEPA. If you know what that is. If they're charging $1,200, that's a great indication that this property should be at least $1,200, right? That absolutely is the strongest comparable beyond all the other apartments, but who generally show even more than the $1,200. But I mean, this is establishing a floor of $1,200 per unit as being market rate, if that's what HEPA is doing. Again, you'll see from the settlement statement that we'll provide that we put down around 20%. 20% is very fair and reasonable. This is not a crisis created by how much was financed. It's a crisis created because $77,000 of rent isn't enough to cover $78,000 plus of expenses. And the expense information is provided both in Rain's presentation, but also in one of the exhibits marked Alpha Cap. A couple pages in are the income statements. So you have this information available to you. In both the oral and in the written presentation. Again, two numbers to show this landlord is doing an amazing amount, but cannot continue doing so. 345 work orders, right, in a matter of months. They are out there, and for purposes of their case, they might want to badmouth it, but then in the end, somebody admits, oh yeah, I do have a new fridge, I have a new this. Alpha is putting into the property. One of the factors is whether this rental money will be reinvested in the property. It is factor 13. And they've put in $196,000 already, again, since August, right? So, again, there's a lot of good faith here. The numbers kind of speak for themselves, and no amount of bad-mouthing can undo these facts. Thank you.
You paid 8.4 for the property.
That's right.
What was the principal amount you financed?
I think it was 7.75, something like that. So you're going to ask, like, what are the remaining monies?
How much did you paid 8.4, you put down a down payment. After the down payment, what did you finance?
$7,750,000, we believe.
$7,750,000?
That's right. And then could you identify, without the settlement statement, what were some of the other costs paid at closing?
No, but we could easily provide that. But it's important to note that what we had talked about in January was, why didn't you put down 20 to 25%, right? And we had made a case that when you were in a town like Niantic, right, the properties tend to appreciate over time, right? Now, whether or not a landlord keeps their rents low will not always affect, or will not always keep the property from appreciating. So a landlord keeps their rents low for a long time, and the property appreciates because of its location, because of the balconies and the ACs and stuff like that, right? This property would not have qualified for a traditional loan at 20 to 25% of debt service coverage ratio. This property did not meet it, right? So, just wanted to state that as context.
Well, according to those numbers, you did only, in fact, put down $650,000, what you just told me.
So what?
You didn't put down 20%.
He was talking about the amount of cash that we brought to closing.
Well, that has nothing to do with what you put down and what you financed.
That was the reference.
I had a feeling that's what all that was. Yeah, but you, in essence, only put down $650,000, which is not even 10%. It's about
additional monies were put down, but not applied to the finance. They were applied to other costs, and that's what we'll
right,
get
but
you.
that's all separate when you buy a property.
Could I clarify?
Well, I mean, if you only have a certain amount of cash, and they came up with a lot more cash to make this deal work.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they had other expenses. They had to pay security deposits. They had to pay upfront insurance. They had to pay the tax. There's a lot of stuff they had to pay. I'm a little familiar with
So
it.
that should be considered as part of
Yeah, but that's
the
not
commitment. The financial
that's not
commitment.
considered. When you buy a property, you put so much down, so you finance so much. And that's what she was talking about. If they had put down more, what they financed would have been less. Their mortgage payment would have been quite a bit less.
Right, but they need that money for those other costs.
Well, you have to bring that with you when you buy a property.
You can't ignore that, hundreds of
No,
thousands
you don't
of
ignore
other
it. What I'm
stuff.
saying is you put down X amount of percentage
Yeah,
when you buy a property. And you bring other money to pay for all those extra expenses.
yeah.
That's not part of your down payment.
Not against the amount that's financed, but there's other more monies paid. So it's
There's
not like
always
we
money.
came in with $1. They came in with about 1.5, and that has.
What I'm trying to say is, in essence, they should have put quite a bit more down. They would have had a much smaller mortgage payment.
And then how would they pay their other costs? They'd have to finance the other costs.
Well, you bring that money with you when you buy it. I mean, I've bought plenty of properties, and so I'm kind of familiar with it.
Yeah.
You pay so much down, you have 20 or 25% down, and then you bring the extra money for all your closing costs.
Yeah, well, I think it would help when we see the settlement statement.
Just saying, when
Yeah.
you brought that up about that, and you said you paid 20%, I knew the number was off. And
Because of the other monies.
Counselor, you keep on saying down payment. In down payment, traditionally, in the appraisal world, or the assessment world, or this buy and sell world, they consider it 20%, you're saying 20% down.
Or 25.
Or 25%, or whatever the number is. You're saying 20%, you've said that 2 or 3 times during the presentation. That's usually the equity position either in the difference between the appraisal price or the sale price and the mortgage. Do you agree to that? That's the equity. That's when you say down payment, that's
Right.
what you usually mean.
What I meant is the money that was put down at the closing to accomplish this.
Right, but as the chairman said, that's other monies that go down. You keep on saying that they put down payment of. They didn't put a down payment of. If they put a down payment on 7 million for a round number, they would have had to either had an appraisal or they would have paid $9.6 million for the property. And you're saying they didn't do that.
Correct.
So then that number is kind of misleading.
Well, then maybe down payment is a term of art, and I
I'm
would
just
mean
trying to
better
get for
at paid at
clarification.
closing would be more accurate.
Yeah, that down payment should have been more in line of around 2 million.
And I have a
A little
question.
less than that, probably.
I have a question for Alpha. One thing that you keep on referring to is all these statements regarding fair housing, etc. One thing I haven't heard from you, and maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't heard where you came out and took each of the 4 units and said, these are the equities, these are correct, that are the amenities that are in each of these units. This is the square footage, these are the new units, this has an old refrigerator, has a new refrigerator. None of that you've told me to this point. So I mean, you've talked about it in mass, but you haven't talked about it for the particular case that's brought before us.
Yeah, that's no problem. I understand that. So for Scott Olnick, we did offer him a set of a brand new fridge, a brand new stove, brand new dishwasher. I believe he declined the offer, which I can't force you to take brand new appliances. But when we had when we initially did the rent increase, we did offer him these 3 things, and he did not want us to come in and install those. As for the rest of the tenants, since we haven't increased the rent formally, we haven't upgraded the unit. I try to ask people as we're renewing, because I know it is a big jump, what's going on in your unit? Do you need new carpet? Do you need new appliances? What can we do for you? I try to get an assessment of that generally, and then we go from there.
But the one other concern you brought was, you started to bring a concern, and it did go back to last week. Council, if you don't mind me asking this question.
Yeah.
There was a question about the square footage of 1 unit.
Yeah.
And you're now telling us, I mean, some of them are different sizes. You haven't clarified that in any of these cases.
Yes, so
That
I did
these are
provide-
larger, these are smaller.
I did provide a census here that has each of the square footage of each of the units for the past ones and the current ones.
Show them what it looks like today.
Sorry, I have a bunch of notes on here now.
Just
but
what it looks like.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
it should be included. I know it's a lot of paperwork.
It was last week's or this week?
This was this month's presentation.
And we didn't have access to the square footage. When we cite square footage, we were using the documentation that they provided to us prior to the hearing, so those numbers should be the same.
I also did note, because with the initial, I mean, is it okay for me to, so 3 of the tenants from the past one, we did provide new appliances. They had agreed to the rent increase and then went back, and there was a big commotion, and everything kind of came to a halt.
To town council and to both councils. In the first case, Mr. Olenek, in his presentation, he refers at one point to Jennifer Yu
Yes,
as social worker for the town.
yes.
I'm just asking if there's a reason why you think I may want to recuse myself, because I am the chairman of the Commission on Aging, and she was a member of our Commission on Aging. She has since left us and gone to another job, but at that particular time, I never had a discussion with her, but since her name was mentioned, I just want to clarify that, if there was any concern from council or anybody that I should recuse myself because of that.
Maybe we should hear from the parties representing Alpha and the tenants, and then I can weigh in if it's still an issue.
Thank you. I was just looking for guidance on that, Council.
Yes.
We don't have any concerns, given that Miss Yu is no longer here, and because of that, we were not able to speak to her anyway.
Okay.
I have no concerns. She was great to work with.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Just a comment on the quick facts.
Yes.
Taxes, insurance, mortgage, January rent roll totals to a negative $3,295, according to your documents. And I think I brought this up last time too. If you have vacancies and you fill those, you have more rent roll. If rent is increased for any tenants that might be present tonight who are claiming, there's money added toward that. So being simplistic here, if you need over $3,200 to survive, I think you're going to achieve that much by renting the units, minimal incremental increases to get to an end goal of your market rate.
I would agree, but I would like to point out too, our construction expenses and approximate maintenance expenses are not included in those numbers.
So we raised every one of them $200, and there's 5 people here. You're talking $1,000. We're still in the red. These numbers include the current rent that the tenants that are here are paying, right? Now, landlords are also entitled to fair and equitable returns when you when you invest into the properties, right? So for a continued investment, right, into the building, continued investment into the specific units, right, that's going to be important. That rental revenue is going to be important. Right?
Yeah, but it's a business transaction. It's a risk. You've put yourself in a position to make that happen, and now you're behind the power curve, and you expect somebody to bail you out.
The property norm is what exactly is expected to bail a landlord out. The rental income is meant to be sufficient. And to address one of your points, we can't rely on any number of market rents because it could be any number of further hearings before the Fair Rent Commission. We don't presume any number going forward.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think that is it.
Anybody else? Somebody want to make a motion? To close the public hearing?
Do we have enough for you?
Oh,
Madam
you have all
Secretary?
the, I'm sorry.
Before we close the public hearing, if council could go talk to Sandy and Ms. Konakowitz, because I was seeing exhibits that I didn't see in these packages. Maybe Attorney Pascal was taking them out of the folder that I have, but would all council just make sure that all of the exhibits are marked and are...
I have some extras of some misprinted.
Okay, but they have been marked as full exhibits, and you have those, Ms. Anderson?
Perhaps if we have 5 minutes between Rain and Stacy, we can
Yeah,
make sure.
I think that would make us all feel better.
I want to make sure also that you have like this.
We have that one.
That has a square footage.
Oh, this is yours. I have, that one's yours.
Oh, okay.
Mine's over here. That's yours.
Okay.
Yes, that's yours. All of these that they have in here are exhibits.
Just for like.
Oh.
And then I asked Stacy if she could an extra for the children. Yeah.
Stacy, can we have?
I have a comment on one of the exhibits that they have in here on the places for, in the Alpha one. Here they have all the exhibits of the different apartments and stuff. They have in here the Deerfield Village, and they have their floors as 2 bedrooms, 1 bath at 1,000 square feet, but they didn't put a picture, nor did they include that in here, that all of these units have a 1-stall garage, and 95% of them have a full basement.
So there was not a picture included online. I apologize for that.
Okay, that's fine. It's just,
Mr. Chairman, if we could get like one clear statement on what Mr. Olenek and Mr. LaPlante should bring over to town hall, that would be helpful.
Okay, let me see,
I can do that.
okay.
So for Mr. Olenek, we just need any 1099s that he has from any investment income. Since he doesn't have his current taxes done, we'll accept the 1099, correct, Commission?
Yep.
Okay. The same for Mr. LaPlante, if he has any 1099s from investment income. And then from Alpha, we just need the closing disclosure for the purchase of the property.
And
That's it.
can we have a due date?
Do you guys want to decide on the date that you want all of these documents by?
So we can't decide on any of them tonight,
Yes, we can.
right?
No, we can. We're just not deciding on Olenek or LaPlante.
Right.
There are 3 others that we can consider.
Correct.
And the other 2, what do we need? A week? A week reasonable? States?
We would ask,
Fine for me.
we would ask that the deliberations await our final exhibit, which was the closing disclosure, because that's important to us to have the full information about what was paid for at closing.
I think you explained it sufficiently with regards to what was a down payment, what were the other closing costs they had to bring to the table, so I don't think it's, personally, I don't think it's gonna make a difference. We'd take you at your word for
Well,
your
the other costs are
representation.
really kind of irrelevant, because those are just the costs you have whenever you buy property. But the main issue on buying property is what you put down, what you finance,
Yeah.
because that's what ultimately has control over what you're gonna pay every month.
Okay. As long as we are credited for the amounts that we discussed tonight, I appreciate that we would not object to proceeding. We would want anyone who has, any of the 5 that have investment income, we were asking for their 1099s. It's not just like, take Mr. Olenek, we're not focused on him per se, it's any of them. So Mr. Even Roberts, the question is, what is his real income? And so if he has, for adjusting to try to figure out what his income is, if he has 1099s, that's
So
appropriate.
what are you saying, you want 1099s from all 5 of these people?
Yes. And somebody might say they don't have any, and that would be, but that would be something they could say, but maybe probably 3, 4 out of 5 have them.
Well, if they have them.
I believe that we were not reopening the record
Yeah.
for Mr. Roberts, but rather requesting a redeliberation based on what we had provided in the first hearing.
I would agree, I would make a motion that Mr. Roberts in particular, that record's been closed and figures were adjusted for the purposes of, do we want to revisit our decision from a month ago?
And the figures that that were provided are the same. I was just highlighting that what I provided today was exactly the same as I provided, but I highlighted my error and said, please see the proof of income, which was provided, but I guess the copy that we provided last time was hard to read.
Well, I do think since you brought the corrected amount and it was lower, I would
Yes.
say that's pretty fair. And I think we'll go along with that. Agreed?
Yeah. And for purposes of the evidence that we received tonight, I believe it's sufficient for us to make a ruling on the complainants other than Mr. Olenek and LaPlante.
Correct.
Anybody need more time for the?
No.
No.
No. And
Second
and I
motion,
think the
please.
13 factors which we are continuously reminded of have been satisfied this evening in each case.
Now, I think I might have accidentally interrupted. I think you were asking for when did you want the documents from Olenek and?
You
And
said 1 week.
I suggested a week. We can do this in a week? Okay. Should be enough time.
So, those documents will be provided to me, no later than Thursday, the March 6th. Okay? And they can be provided electronically, or Mr. Olenek, or Mr. LaPlante, or Mr. Roberts, and then there's the information in my office.
Okay, perfect. I'll probably just speak with you and we're close, yes.
Presentation, right?
Sure, I make a motion to close the record with regards to Bessie Montezoris, John Montezoris, and Peter Roberts.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Who wants to start us off on Bessie Montezoris?
Have we closed that portion?
We did.
of inputs? Okay.
I would say raise her rent $100.
Well, that's the one that, she was 24.57,
Yep, she's 90.
right? And then we found there was some more income, didn't we?
No,
She had an additional IRA that's paid once per
28.73.
year.
Yeah,
No, hers
she's
was
at
20
28.73.
Right.
24.57.
With a $416 monthly.
She
If you,
wrote it to 2873 from, in the presentation.
And they wanted to run her rent to $16.50.
But her income will not ever increase. It'll stay the same.
And again, as we're talking about this, I think, there's an equal weight on both sides here. You have a business to run, and we have lives to lead. And merging those two is very difficult sometimes. And that merge has to be, I think, reasonable and equitable, which is what the rule we're going under here, such that, you deserve something and they deserve something. So I think our deliberations are going to point that out, that we're going to consider raising some rents at certain values to be fair and equitable. Okay? And we're talking, there was $100 for Bessie Montezoris. I think we kind of put our heads together a little second ago. Being consistent with some of our past rulings, I recommend that we raise it $172.50, which increases her rent to $1,322.50.
How much?
$1,322.50.
Why don't you just make it 13.25?
That's a 15%
15%
increase.
is what we went by. But I'm willing to round it with no problem.
13.25 is probably a little bit.
Sounds good to me.
I will second that motion, if that is a motion.
With the caveat, we make it effective February 1st, 2025 to January 31st, 2026.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
With the landlord getting credit for this past month, assuming she's paid $16.50. She has not. Okay. So her first monthly payment would include the increase for February that the landlord didn't get.
So, 13.25. And who seconded it?
I second it.
We'll vote on it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, what are we gonna do next?
John Montezoris.
John Montezoris? Yeah, that's gonna be a tricky one. Because,
The only thing I would say, other than they have similar names, they also had similar propose increase rent from $11.50 to $16.75. And while John does have an unpredictable annual income based on his credible testimony, it still puts him in a better position, he and his wife, than certainly Bessie Montezoro's. So I believe his percentage should be higher than Bessie Montezoro's, which was about 15%. So I would propose a 20% increase.
I would make a motion, it's 1,400 even for a round number.
He makes pretty good money. I would probably predict 1450.
Well, we have a
That's
motion.
still a- but
We have
that's
a-
still
Rescind the
a-
motion.
We have a motion
But
for
that's
1,400. Do we have a second of that?
I will rescind that if, go to 1,450.
Okay, we,
That's still a high increase, no matter what. 20%, 25% increase right off
Yeah,
the
but look at
bat.
his income.
When
Look at his
I
income.
well, I understand his income, but we don't always have to look at
look at it both
somebody's
ways.
income. He's
no, but I think that's a distinguishing factor between Bessie, who we raised 15%, and John. There has to be an upgrade from there if
Well,
we're,
and
if we're
I get-
being fair to both sides.
right. I understand that. I just thought 15% was a little high for Bessie, but when most places raise rent 10, maybe 12 on an average every year.
Well, I just think decisions are made on evidence presented at particular hearings, and tonight we had different evidence, and what was persuasive, what was not. So if you're moving for 1450, I'll
Well, I
second that.
suggested it. Huh?
I'll second that.
Well, you made the motion 1450, right?
No, I made it a 14,
And then you rescinded
I
it.
rescinded it. I'll make it a 1450 if you'd rather come from me.
Yeah, you make it
I'll make the 1450.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Well, that'll be 1450 for 1 year.
For 1 year. And I think his begins the end of, or February 1st?
His
I
lease
believe-
has lapsed already, I think in September, or October.
It's February 1st for, is that when it starts? I'm just trying to get a clarification on that.
That's fine.
When's it start, your rent?
His lease expired in September.
Right.
And he's been paying the upgraded or the?
No, he's been paying $11.50.
I'll make you go back to December. Is that fair?
December 1st
It's 2 months.
through December of 2025?
No, you can go the full year. You can
Make it the whole calendar
go the
25.
whole year.
Go a whole year from today.
From either that or make it from January 1 to January 1, or to December 31st.
Yeah, I think if we're going to give them a break on the couple of months on the front end, that we only extend it to the end of 2025 so the parties can renegotiate in January of 2026.
That's fine. That works.
Just so I understand the starting date, so the ending
December
date.
1st would be the 1450
Okay.
through
December
December
30.
31st, 2025.
Thank you. Now I understand.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I didn't hear, has it been put to a vote yet by the commission? No, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We have one more?
Revisiting Mr. Roberts.
Oh, yeah. Whose income went down 600? We raised his rent to $12.60, correct?
And that was based on a $4,200 a month income, I believe?
41.67. Actually, his income is 35.25.
And he was at 1,050 before?
What did we raise it to?
$12.60.
I still think that's just a moderate increase, even despite $600 less a month. I make a motion that we maintain what we ordered a month ago.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Could I ask a question, Stacy, quick? Stacy, when, from our last hearing, are all those formal notifications out?
Yes.
And they take place, are they taking place already? I don't know, I was looking.
But, I mean, we still have a pending issue where, like, the decisions can't be retroactive into the prior lease term. That is like still an issue that hasn't been resolved. If you understand, right? Like if someone's lease ended, right? So a lot of these folks got rent increase notices before their lease ended, and so then they complained. So if they get a rent increase notice in October, file a complaint in November, lease doesn't end till January, then the decision cannot be retroactive to the complaint because it's cutting into the prior lease term. So it would have to be retroactive to the beginning of the expiration of that lease.
But we haven't made any of those decisions.
But the written decision was different than what was deliberated on. And I have not submitted those to the tenants because I just don't think that that's accurate. It shouldn't be retroactive into the prior lease term.
So we should correct that now.
I believe it should be corrected, but that is not.
I defer to
Yeah.
Attorney Collins.
I'm confused about the issue, if you could repeat that.
So the written decisions that we received were retroactive to the date of the complaint. But for many of the tenants, they complained during the prior lease term, when the prior lease was in effect. And so that is incorrect. It should not be retroactive into the prior lease term. It should be retroactive to the expiration of the prior lease.
Okay, and Alpha is in agreement with that, Attorney Pascal?
We had raised issue of
Yeah,
improper retroactivity.
Okay, so.
And I think the decision that we discussed would have conformed with the law, but in the translation, which is understandable, it didn't come out that way.
Okay, so that, I would recommend that we redo those. I'm sorry. And that, because this is based on an agreement between council, is
Well,
my.
also it's just like a contractual.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
And-
I think we were careful
Yes,
to look back
you
when
were.
this was.
Yes, you were.
No worries.
Okay, so we will have to correct those because since we're changing them, each side has a right to appeal to the Superior Court, and that is only after they receive notice of now a changed decision, or a clarified decision, we can call it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you believe you know the dates? Is that understood?
I do know the dates, yes.
Yep. And I've been telling the tenants are like, we haven't gotten anything, and I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna sit tight, so we got an answer.
Yeah.
There was one individual, Cheryl Cantillon, who we raised the rent, and it was supposed to be retroactive to 8/1/24. Anybody remember that? Where she was going to be provided a credit of $650 a month until January 20th of 2025. You have that one? Okay. Okay.
That's one of those that I think
It was
goes too far back
Yes.
to be proper. Indeed, there's a real question, because the chairman and the vice chairman were sworn in on December 10th. And there's a real question whether they could have jurisdiction to take an action that predates the even existence of the commission. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we're a year from now, and somebody files a complaint in November 2025, and the commission is meeting in March. And in March, you could say, okay, I'm going to make the decision retroactive to when the complaint was. Well, the complaint will be after you are already validly established, no question. But here we are, the last hearing was the very first hearing. And so I question whether anything could be retroactive prior to even the existence of the commission. And 2 members were sworn in on December 10th, other members presumably sworn in after. I didn't have that date. And so I'd raised the question with council whether anything could happen. You know, I didn't give you the date, but now that I found out what the date is, I question whether anything could be done retroactive prior to December 10th.
I think that's a question of law, and I'm not sure I have an answer for that, and I feel like that would need to be investigated, and I would.
Or that would be part of an appeal to the Superior Court if
Well,
you
we're hoping
so
not
chose.
to. We're hoping not to appeal for everybody's sake.
Well, I don't think it would apply to everybody. You're just talking about specific cases, right?
Right.
I think that the commission, that is a question of law, and certainly Alpha can bring that up if they choose to appeal. But I just want to point out to the commission, do you have your ordinances in front of you? So you are to be guided by our ordinance, which was adopted pursuant to state statute. And the ordinance says, in section 5, rent reduction, orders, and repairs. And under subsection B, it says, if the commission determines after hearing that the rental charge or proposed increase is so excessive based on the standards and criteria set forth in our ordinance and the statute as to be harsh and unconscionable, and after that comma, it says, it may order that the rent be limited to such amount as it determines to be fair and equitable, effective the month in which the tenant filed the complaint. So it's may. You have that option. There is nothing here about was the commission in effect. And our ordinance mirrors the state statute. So I would say that you do, my opinion is that you do have the authority to go back to the date the complaint was filed. And there's no mention in our ordinance or in the state statute that the commission had to have been in existence on that date.
The example I gave was to honor this very provision, that in 2026, you can make things retroactive to the date of the complaint because you're entirely in existence. And I don't think this addresses the general law. Can somebody issue orders for when they didn't even exist?
We'll concede that point.
Concede that point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be retroactive to the date of Ms. Canton's complaint, rather than the date of her lease term. Yeah, because, yeah.
Does the commission understand that concession?
So there'll be an amended order, an amended decision going out with regards to that tenant.
Yeah. Anything else? Other comments? Anyone want to speak?
Move to adjourn.
Somebody make a motion.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.